Welcome, everyone, to our third BDD workshop, Setting Realistic Ritual Prevention Goals. Goals for BDD can be multiple. They can be long-term, they can be short-term. But first, in order to get us settled in for today's talk, I want you to think about the breathing exercise we did last week and just really try to center yourself and breathe deeply. And if you'd like to, you can close your eyes. What I'd like you to do is visualize what your life will look like when you've recovered from body dysmorphic disorder. So think about something that you would like to accomplish long-term and how you would like your life to be once BDD is no longer in your life. So perhaps it's taking a trip that you just feel like you can't take right now just because you'd be too socially anxious to do it. Perhaps it's starting to do art, if that's something you've always wanted to do. Perhaps it's learning how to dance, or perhaps it's simply getting into a long-term relationship or getting married or having children. Whatever it is that you feel that BDD has taken away from you, try to visualize what your life will be like when BDD is no longer an impediment to your dreams and goals. And just try to hold that feeling. Try to get yourself into that place. And primarily, I want you to also believe that it's possible to recover from body dysmorphic disorder. I have, and I know that with time, skills, and treatment, it is possible to recover from body dysmorphic disorder. Okay, now that we've done that, I also want to start thinking about setting realistic goals for ritual prevention. And one thing, it's important for any of the coping skills that I'm teaching during these workshops, for any exercises that you're being taught by therapists that you're working with, and by any goals that you set for yourself, whether they're BDD related or otherwise in your life, it's important to realize that you don't just shoot right up. Or as I showed, I think in workshop 1, it's not like a target where you're going to hit the bullseye the first time and you're done. Life doesn't work that way. And we're human beings. It's just not possible. It's important to look at this diagram and to really understand that success is a series of ups and downs. And we can be succeeding at our goals one day or 1 week, and then the next week we can have a really bad week, and then we may not accomplish any of our goals. And that's just the way life works. That's why it's really important to set realistic short-term and long-term goals, especially when it comes to ritual prevention. Now, ritual prevention, we've talked about the cognitive behavioral triangle. So we've talked about our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors. Last week, we worked on modifying our thoughts from negative to neutral to trying to get into more positive thoughts. This week, we're going to look at behaviors, and specifically, we're going to look at rituals. So again, it's important to realize, and Catherine Phillips, who wrote The Broken Mirror and Understanding BDD, says in her books that it's really important to think about recovery like a shark's tooth, kind of, in terms of shark's teeth, is that up and down, that V shape, very much like this diagram. So again, we can reach our goals, especially if they're realistic and they feel like they're realistic to us, but it's going to take time. And it's not just going to be a straight upward trajectory. There's going to be setbacks. There's going to be times when we don't meet our goals. And it's important to understand that before we even start. So we don't have the perfectionistic standards and set those for ourselves so that anytime we don't reach one of our goals, it feels like a failure and we berate ourselves. It's just important to realize that this is the way success and recovery is going to work. The ritual prevention process, and this is from Sabine Wilhelm's book, Feeling Good About the Way You Look, and some things that I have added to it. But it's important to understand that ritual prevention is a process. And there are steps that you can take to make it a successful process. First is, as we're going to talk about more, choosing realistic long-term and short-term ritual prevention goals. Then it's important to choose specific ritual prevention strategies to meet those goals and to practice daily to reduce the rituals. So whenever the rituals happen, it's important to start trying to prevent them. But we're going to take one ritual at a time just to, again, increase our chances of success. Now, you can decrease rituals over time and take the amount of time that feels right for you. It's not going to happen within 1 week. It may not happen over the course of 1 month. It could take months, and it could also take years. Hopefully not, but be prepared depending on how strong that ritual is for you. You will feel anxious and distressed at first because, again, rituals are compulsive behaviors. So when you interrupt that compulsive behavior, either by trying to reduce it, by procrastinating, and some of the other strategies we'll talk about, you will feel anxious because your body, your mind wants to perform that ritual. It makes one feel better as one's performing the ritual for a very short period of time, perhaps, but then it's simply a compulsive behavior. And we talked a little bit about addictive behaviors last week. But again, a ritual is an addictive behavior. When you interrupt that addictive kind of, compulsive behavior, automatic behavior, of course, you're going to feel anxious. But over time, those feelings will decrease, especially if you practice these ritual prevention strategies on a daily basis. It's also important to record your progress daily, weekly, and monthly so that you understand, like I said, sometimes you're going to maybe not do the ritual prevention as well. Other times you may have a great day or a great week doing those ritual prevention strategies, meeting those goals. It's important to just chart your progress over time because it's easy on those days or those weeks when you're not doing the ritual prevention exercises the way you would like to be doing them. Then you don't berate yourself. You can just say, hey, I had a really good week last week. And perhaps, I'm going through a lot of stress this week. That's the reason I'm not able to kind of stay on course. But next week, I'll double my effort and practice even more. And I'm sure that I'll improve. And that's why it's important to record as you're doing these ritual prevention strategies. I mentioned this before, I will keep mentioning it, but it's always important also to record in your journal when you have those really great weeks and to really celebrate yourself, celebrate those wins. It's really important because once you recognize how well you're doing with the ritual prevention, then, it's going to give you encouragement. It's going to make you feel better. You can feel proud of yourself for doing really well. And that will help to give you motivation to keep doing them. So it's really important to recognize when you're doing them well and to reward yourself. And if you have a specific goal, either a long-term ritual prevention goal or even a short-term goal, it's important to, try to celebrate it in a positive way. And we'll talk more about that coming up. So the first step is to choose a ritual or rituals you would like to decrease. According to Sabine Wilhelm, it's really important to start with the most stressing or disturbing behavior first, if possible. So if, let's say, you have 5 rituals that you would like to decrease, and I've listed them here, I'll go over them briefly. Let's say you number them from 1 to 10 or 1 to 5, depending on how many you want to kind of think about doing. And these are long-term. So again, these are rituals that you want to reduce over the course of weeks or months, not necessarily something that you think, I can stop tomorrow, which would not be realistic. But start with the one that you think is most disturbing. So the one that impacts your daily life the most, whether that's getting ready for work in the morning, and that's the example I'm going to use in terms of staring in the mirror and getting trapped in the mirror, but there's a lot of others. So if you find that, it's interrupting with going to school, going to work, hanging out with friends, whatever you find to be the most disturbing, if you can start with that one, then that would be the one Sabine Wilhelm would advise you to do. But if for some reason the one you rate as number one is just going to be too hard to start with, and you don't feel like you can start with that one, then go to number 2 or number 3 to start with. So here's a list of some common rituals for people with BDD that you might want to think about reducing. First one would be mirror checking or avoidance, comparing disliked body features, either of your face or body, to others or to yourself. This can also be, for example, when people compare an image of themselves as they look now to how they looked when they were younger, or of course, just comparing to models in magazines or online or on Instagram or however it is. It could be with friends, when one's out with friends, comparing oneself to others that way, or strangers at a mall, whatever the case may be. That's kind of a ritual that people get into. Reassurance seeking about appearance. As we know, people can do this multiple times a day, 20 or more. One of my group members, her son has muscle dysmorphia, which is when somebody thinks they're too small, men, although they have a lot of muscularity. And she said he will text her sometimes 100 times a day, just saying, losing body mass, I'm smaller now. Stuff like that, that's a ritual. It's a compulsive BDD behavior. Seeking and getting cosmetic surgery procedures, like if somebody, some people will just look and spend hours Googling cosmetic surgery procedures online. That's a ritual. That's a compulsive behavior. Other people will get Botox multiple times and not be happy. Some people will out and out, right, get plastic surgery or fillers multiple times and not be happy. So again, anything that feels like a compulsive behavior that almost feels like it's out of your control, that would be considered kind of a ritual. Dating for reassurance purposes. This came up in my support group last week. If you're compulsively dating, going out, going to bed with people just to prove that you're attractive to the opposite sex, that would be a ritual. Taking multiple selfies, like photos and videos, sometimes, to see if one's appearance has changed, how one's appearance has changed over time. This came up in the support group I studied for my dissertation, where this young woman would take multiple selfies and videos before she went out anywhere with her friends, just so she could kind of get a sense that she looked okay. If she took like 200 or 20 or however many, then at least if one looked okay, then she could feel like she could think back on that one when she was out with her friends and reassure herself she looked okay. That would be a ritual. Camouflaging one's face or body with makeup, clothing, or wearing a mask still, even though we're past COVID. And again, I'm going to tackle that one as one of my examples for goals, but some people take, hours to get ready in the morning by styling their hair or putting on their makeup, and that's a ritual. And then also just one thing that I used to do, other than mirror staring at my nose, was I would pick my skin for hours, and I could lose hours and hours in the mirror picking at my skin. So that's also kind of a ritual. Hair pulling can be a ritual. Or manipulation of a body part. A lot of people will touch their nose multiple times a day or all the time, or try to kind of squeeze it, or, stuff like that. That would be considered a ritual. Okay, so here are some ritual prevention strategies that could be used. What Sabine recommends, and I recommend, is choosing one or more prevention strategies for each ritual. You saying that not to overwhelm yourself, but you may need more than one ritual prevention strategy, especially if the ritual has multiple parts that are really compulsive and hard to stop or to even reduce. So you may need to take on one or more of these to work on for your goal. What you can do is you can restrict the time spent on your rituals versus stopping altogether. I think we mentioned this a little bit, and I will kind of talk about it. Certainly spending time, checking your appearance after you've gotten dressed to make sure your clothes look nice, or just, checking to make sure hair looks nice before you leave the house. Briefly, taking about, maybe 15 to 30 minutes, depending on getting ready in the morning. That could be, normal. No one's saying you should totally stop looking in the mirror in order to get ready in the morning. But spending 2 hours doing it is probably making you late for work. It's distressing. Some people spend so long getting ready that they simply give up because they're not satisfied with how they look. And then they're too late anyway because they've missed the time they're supposed to meet their friends for whatever activity they're doing. So again, sometimes just reducing the amount of time spent on a ritual versus, can be really helpful and beneficial. Postponing rituals, meaning wait until a later time, that helps to get that compulsive anxiety. It allows a person to sit with that anxiety and understand that, well, maybe I don't have to do this right now. Maybe I can wait an hour. Maybe I can wait a day. Maybe I can wait a week. And again, kind of postponing the ritual will help to reduce it over time. Decreasing the frequency of the rituals, as I mentioned, the person who was texting his mom hundreds of times a day. Let's say it's somebody who's reassurance seeking. Do I look okay with family members? Or, a ritual strategy might be to just say, I'm going to go from doing it 20 times a day to maybe at first 10 times a day, with the ultimate goal of maybe doing it twice a day. And it's really important when we're setting realistic goals to, sometimes it's a 50%. It might be a good way of thinking about it does it feel realistic to make one of the short-term goals, reducing that by maybe 50% at first? So going from, 20 to 10 times a day, with the ultimate goal of maybe doing it once or twice, but you don't leap from 20 to 2. That would just be too drastic and not very realistic in terms of achievable. And we'll talk about SMART goals in a minute. Making it difficult for the ritual to occur, meaning removing the tools that one uses. So for example, if you use a little makeup mirror, a compact mirror, and you carry that with you everywhere, simply maybe leaving that at home so you're not tempted to stare at yourself in that mirror. For people who like to pick at their hair a lot, maybe putting your tweezers in a hard to use spot, hard to find spot, so that you're not doing that all the time, maybe just reducing it where you have one tweezer, so that you're just, again, putting in a place outside of one's bathroom where you have to really make an effort to go and get it. I know somebody who had a hair cutting. She wanted to cut her hair. That was her kind of compulsive ritual. She basically she had 3 different shears she used. She got it down to 1. And then she was able to get rid of that shear altogether. She threw it in the trash and then brought the trash outside. So again, just taking those tools away from oneself can be really helpful in trying to prevent that ritual from occurring. Using what's called mirror management techniques, and Ari Winograd does a good job of talking about these in his book, Face to Face with BDD. Just briefly, a couple of those would be making sure you're always standing at arm's length from your mirror, so none of this close-up staring, making sure you're at least an arm's length away. Other therapists, including Sabine, will say trying to see yourself holistically instead of, narrowing in on that disliked body part or facial feature, trying to do a more holistic assessment and look at yourself holistically. Again, distance from the mirror can be really helpful with that. One of Sabine's is to do competing actions. So for example, if you're constantly skin picking with your fingers or hair pulling with your fingers, trying to grasp your fingers or making a fist, and grasping your fist so that your hands can't do that behavior when you're feeling that need to do that. And again, she lists but that's what she would call a competing action to work on that ritual. So those are some ritual prevention strategies. Like I said, try to use the strategies daily and fit them into your schedule. You want to really start countering your first ritual that you have chosen to tackle right away. The sooner you can start, the better off you will be in the long run. One thing to note, as you notice, a lot of these rituals are reducing time spent on the rituals. So you're going to have some extra time on your hands, or if you're postponing the ritual, what do you do in the meantime? Well, you don't want to let the anxiety mount, and you don't want to find yourself bored, because then you'll simply want to do the ritual because you have nothing better to do. So Sabine and most therapists will say that it's really good to replace the time now, or that space in your life, or that time. Sometimes just going to work on time, right? Going to school on time, leaving the house so you can meet your friends at an appointed time. That might be, part of it. But when you have that other extra time now, you've reduced your ritual from 2 hours to maybe 30 minutes. which will be the example I showed, now you have an hour and a half. What are you going to do with it? So, really, it's recommended you try to do social activities, some positive social activities to get yourself out of the house and around other people. But even if you can't do that, I would say just, focus on some favorite hobbies, such as, getting out of the house and exercising, or going to a dance class, or, taking up art or painting, or either taking up a musical instrument or listening to music, rocking out to music, volunteering for a cause, for an organization at a cause you care about, doing some sports on a team or something, hanging out with friends. Just doing reading is okay. Reading a book for pleasure, reading a self-help book sometimes. But of course, also, hanging out with pets, petting your pets, spending time with them, grooming them, walking them. I walk my cat. That's a nice pastime that I do. So again, it's always important, though, to counter the negative thoughts, the negative behaviors with positive action. So in this case, we're replacing rituals and these compulsive behaviors with hopefully positive activities that you enjoy doing. So you want to counter that. As you recover, as you overcome your BDD symptoms, it's just important to replace the negative things in your life with more positive things. Okay, when we're choosing goals, both long-term and short-term ritual prevention goals, it's important to make them SMART goals. SMART is an acronym, the SMART, and it stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. I'm just going to talk about each of these briefly, and then I'll show you a couple of examples. So specific means to make your goal as specific as possible. Just saying I'm going to stare in the mirror less is a very vague goal, and it doesn't really have a lot of specifics around it to make it achievable for you. Measurable means really to put a time frame or numbers. Think about measurable being something so you can evaluate one's progress and you can know when you're achieving your goals. So think about making sure that there's numbers involved, a time frame, reducing the amount of time from 2 hours to 30 minutes, reducing the amount of repetitions from 20 times of reassurance seeking to 10, and then 2 times of reassurance seeking. So make sure they're measurable for yourself. Achievable, this is something that really only you will be able to determine, but choose things that you really feel that you can achieve, that you want to achieve, that you need to achieve in your life. Again, choose goals that make sense for you, that you want to achieve, and that you feel are achievable. Realistic, we'll talk about that in a moment, but again, just make sure the goals feel realistic. If they don't feel realistic to you, if you feel like you're making too much of a leap from where you are now to where you want to be, notch it back. It's much better to take more time with short, smaller goals than to try to do this huge goal and not be able to accomplish it. Because again, you want to be able to reward yourself and have these small wins along the way so that you can feel good about yourself and reward yourself and feel proud about what you've accomplished, not beat yourself up because you failed at making this goal that really wasn't realistic in the first place. And then time bound, this is another way of making your goals kind of measurable. Are you going to try to accomplish this goal in a month? Are you going to accomplish it in 3 months? Are you going to try to accomplish this goal in the next year, 6 months to a year? Make sure that you give yourself a time frame. You won't know that you've achieved your goal unless you know that you've met it within the time frame that you want to. Okay, so here's an example. This is a diagram. The top is your long-term goal. And again, I'll give you an example of that. The long-term goal is not the same as the visualization we did earlier in terms of visualizing your life after you've recovered from BDD. That's an amazing long-term goal. This is simply a ritual prevention long-term goal that we're talking about today. Now, again, you want to do smaller term goals for your first week, maybe your second week, your third week, and your fourth week, if you're seeing this as something that you want to accomplish within a month. But as I showed you here, you can make these are monthly goals. Let's say something, you say, I want to accomplish reducing this ritual over the course of the next 4 months. or 5 months or 6 months, again, whatever feels right for you, then these would be monthly short-term goals. Again, you need to know where you're at and where you want to get to determine what the goals are best for you. So this is my sample. Would be, for example, someone wants to reduce the time they're getting ready for work from 2 hours to 30 minutes. Okay. And this would be over the course of a month. So 4 weeks. And this is assuming that the person is spending, let's say, an hour approximately styling their hair in the morning, and then another hour putting on makeup, trying to get it look just right before they leave the house for work or social, hanging out with friends, whatever the case may be. Week 1, a goal could be putting on makeup for 30 minutes. Now, that could still mean it might take the person an hour to style their hair the first week. That's fine. We're only going to look at one short-term goal and we'll look at reducing that first. So the first goal would be putting on makeup from 60 minutes to reducing that to, let's say, 30 minutes. Like I said, having it 50% is a good rule of thumb to use. Then week 2, still keeping the makeup for only 30 minutes, then the person would work on styling their hair for only 30 minutes. That would be something that would happen in week 2. Then week 3 would be trying to reduce the amount of time spent on putting on makeup to 15 minutes. But styling one's hair could still take 30 minutes in that 3rd week. And then the 4th week, still only taking 15 minutes to put on makeup, then the person could try reducing their hairstyling time to 15 minutes. And that would reduce the overall time spent from 2 hours down to 30 minutes total. And that seems like it could be achievable. Again, if a month is too short a time, maybe this would be over the course of 4 months. But again, making it very specific, making it very measurable, and very time-bound and hopefully achievable as well. Those are all important when it comes to ritual prevention strategies and goals. Okay, some tips to help you succeed. Put reminders, for example, and again, you will know when it comes to your specific ritual. You are also welcome to ask me questions. I also offer individual coaching sessions. So if you are interested in individual coaching sessions, I can certainly help you with your ritual prevention goals if you think that would be helpful. You can also, of course, email me whatever you think would be most beneficial, because I want to see you succeed. You want to see yourself succeed. And we all want to see each other succeed in this workshop. One thing, especially if it's something like mirror checking, it's important you can just put stickies right on your mirror in terms of what you want to achieve. Success strategies and people who give advice for this generally will say it's important to focus on what you want to do more than what you don't want to do. So maybe the being kind, be yourself, get shit done, so to speak, get stuff done might be more helpful than don't waste your time or don't give up. But again, maybe when you're starting this, simply saying, don't stare in the mirror, or keep going. You're doing great. Whatever positive affirmations you want, or 15 minutes only. If you're really trying to reduce the time and you want to focus on that. You can also set an alarm on your clock, on your watch, on your smartphone. If you want to just really, if it's a time issue and you want to reduce the amount of time, always setting an alarm to kind of keep yourself on task is really important. And again, it's important to be honest with yourself and set goals. So if 15 minutes doesn't feel right and you find yourself cheating or fudging, you can readjust your goal to say, okay, 15 minutes isn't really working, so maybe I'll go to 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And that way I won't feel like fudging or, cheating on myself. And that still feels achievable, and it's still less than what my ritual originally took me. I like this one. You can put it anywhere. You can put it on your bedroom wall. You can put it wherever. You can put it on your refrigerator. It doesn't have to be on your bathroom mirror. If, let's say, your ritual is about something other than getting trapped in the mirror, you could just put, a sticky note up or sticky notes up wherever you think they're going to be most helpful to remind you of the ritual or rituals you're trying to reduce or prevent. Okay. Please note that as with anything in this workshop, as with anything when you're trying to change your behaviors or reach a goal, practice, practice, practice. The more you can practice it, the easier it'll become over time, the more you're going to reduce the anxiety that you experience, and the more likely it is that you're going to be able to achieve the goals that you set for yourself. Just a brief note, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but just a brief note on dealing with anxiety. Like I said, you're going to feel anxious. The woman on the right might be going out in public and, mirror checking. Social comparing herself. And she might be feeling anxious about that. The gentleman on the left, that could be more looking at his reflection in the mirror, something like that. Thinking about how others are perceiving him when he's out and about, doing some of those mind reading and comparison rituals as well. It's just important to know that, yes, you are going to feel some anxiety. You can, if you want to, rate your level of anxiety before, as you're doing the ritual prevention exercise, and even perhaps before, during, and after. So if you feel really anxious and you think, oh, I have a really high level of anxiety, it's like at a 10, and then you prevent yourself from doing it, and oh my goodness, now it's going up to a 15. Or you may find that it drops if you're preventing yourself from doing a ritual, and it may go down to a 5. And then, again, it's just important if you want to. You don't have to. If you feel like that's too much, and I don't want to deal with rating rituals and rating my anxiety levels. Sabine Wilhelm talks about that. Sometimes I feel like that's overwhelming a person when they're trying to cut down on a ritual. But just know that, yes, you are going to feel anxious, and your anxiety may increase when you're at first undergoing these ritual prevention strategies. However, as you practice and over time, your anxiety will decrease, because you'll notice that this compulsive behavior, this BDD ritual, has less control over your life. And as soon as you realize it has less control over your life and you're doing more pleasant activities to substitute for the time you've been taking doing these rituals, you're going to feel better, and you're going to feel proud, and you're going to feel confident that you can keep overcoming these BDD symptoms. So yes, at first you probably will feel more anxious. Just prepare yourself for that. But over time, the rituals and over time with practice, the anxiety will decrease. Again, it's important to record your progress daily and weekly. Don't neglect this step, because you are doing measurable goals. Now, if your goal is to reduce, the amount of time over a week, then you want to record your results at the end of that week as to how you did meeting those very measurable, time-bound goals. It's really important. That's the only way you're going to be able to reassure yourself that you've actually made progress. And you will make progress, but you need to be very careful and record your progress so that you can look back and know that you have made progress towards your goals. That comes to our homework for this week. Try to make it as manageable as possible. I want you to choose one long-term ritual prevention goal. As I said, ideally, it's the one that you find most disturbing and most troublesome for yourself. But if that feels like it's too much to tackle, you can go to one of those lower, but still troublesome BDD compulsive behaviors or rituals. I want you to choose one short-term goal for this week. Consider this to be week 1 of your ritual prevention. So I want you to choose one short-term goal. And again, make sure it's a SMART goal, as we talked about. I want you to practice the goal daily for the next 5 to 7 days, probably starting tomorrow. But if you want to do it tonight and you have a ritual maybe that you do before you get ready for bed, you can start right away. The sooner the better. I want you to record your results in your journal or daily planner. Again, this can be a digital daily planner or journal. It doesn't have to be a handwritten one. Whatever you're using, I want you to record your results. I want you to adjust your short-term goals if needed. Again, please don't cheat yourself. If you feel that your short-term goal is just too difficult, maybe you made it unachievable, so it's not really a SMART goal, you can adjust it. It's better to adjust it. For example, saying, okay, I said that I would only take 30 minutes doing this activity, but I've been fudging and it's been taking me an hour. And then I feel terrible because I know I'm not meeting that 30-minute goal I set for myself. Maybe say, well, does 45 minutes or 40 minutes, does that seem more achievable? What feels achievable to you is what's most important. So feel free to adjust those goals, but just make sure that you are adjusting them in a way that's going to get you somewhere. You don't want to just stay at the same time frame or the same amount of repetitions of a ritual. You want to reduce it over time. What I want you to do this week by Saturday is to share your one long-term and your short-term goals to the Workshop 3 chat, and then to reply to others before the next workshop. Add your bonus for this week's homework, this workshop homework, I should say, is to share your ritual prevention results. Now, you don't have to if you don't want to. You can just share your goals. But if you feel like, and again, if you have setbacks, that's totally fine. You're human, you're a person, you're not going to be perfect. But if you have some successes you want to share too, by all means, go out and kind of maybe share your results for your 5 to 7 days, your week 1 of doing your ritual prevention goals. And, and just share out, let us know how you're doing. But you don't have to. That's just kind of a bonus if you feel like you want to do that. So I look forward to seeing you at our next workshop, Workshop 4. Thank you. Okay, welcome everyone.